Hello and welcome to a special Sunday morning episode of the Plain Talking UK podcast. It's number 286 this week of the show. And, welcome everyone who's joined us, and welcome Matt Smith.
Hello everyone, how are we? Are we all right?
Yeah, we're good today, you know, we're good. It's a Sunday morning, and I'm back in the UK.
Yeah, yes. And frankly, he's done nothing but complain about it ever since, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, from the minute I checked in at Luca Airport yesterday morning,
Yes.
I complained all the way home.
Did you? Right.
And the worst of the complaints were when I landed at London Luton Airport.
Okay.
But more about that later. Yes, but apologies from Armando and Nev this week as they're not with us on the show. But we have got a super substitute co-host for the show this week. He's joined us all the way from Portland, Maine. It's our main man, Micah.
Hello, everyone. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I don't know that I can be substituting for Armando and Nev, but I will certainly do my best to kind of fill in.
Absolutely. I can't think of anyone more qualified, frankly.
No, well, thank you very much for getting up at silly o'clock and joining us this morning from...
Have you been on the sauce last night, Carlos? Oh, no, it's all right. You were all out of focus there for a minute.
Was I?
Yeah. All blurry. Yeah.
No, it's lovely to see you, Micah. How are things with you across the pond there? How's things in Maine?
Wonderful. Other than I would normally be asleep at this time of the day because it's 7 a.m. and this is when I get my prime REM sleep, as many of you know.
Right.
I'm a late night guy, but it was a pleasure to wake up knowing, oh, hey, I'm going to be able to visit with Carlos, and I'm going to be able to visit with Matt, and I'm going to be able to talk to all my friends from all over the world on PT UK.
Oh, he's lovely, isn't he? Yes.
He's lovely.
Yes. If only none of it was true.
So, welcome to everyone who has joined us this morning in the live chat room. Actually, lots of people who are getting up across the globe to see us today. We've got, in the chat room, we've got Auntie Liz has joined us in the chat room. Hello to
that
you,
lady
Liz.
does literally
she
never sleeps.
And you think she'd live next to an airport, wouldn't you, the amount of time she spends awake. But anyway, Evan Shue, hello to you, Evan. We've got Chris Griggs, Masha, hello to you, Masha. Lovely to see you in the chat room as well. Tony S, hello to you, Tony. Neil Lamworn, he's there busy polishing his guppy over at Bruntingthorpe.
I beg your pardon.
So welcome to everyone who's joined us in the YouTube chat room this morning. It is the 15th of September. Which is,
how did that
wow?
happen? Yeah.
It's the summertime is officially finished here in the UK now. It's all
mind you,
over.
I'm hoping that I mowed my lawn for the last time today. I'm hoping that'll be the end of that now.
I just can't believe where the months are going. You know, all of a sudden September, October, no wonder. I just can't figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So, what have we got coming up this week? Well, we've got all the usual news.
Have we? Right.
Yeah, we have,
okay.
And we've also got a special segment from the Biggin Hill Festival of Flight 2019, which is actually is you, Matt. You are featuring in this week's one because you are interviewing.
Yes, contrary to popular belief, I was actually there. Unfortunately, that was the only thing because some of the interviews we got were very prestigious. The only trouble side is the only problem there was we were only allowed 2 people airside, obviously, so it makes perfect sense that it should have been Carlos and Nev, of course. But we did do one in the field.
You spent most of your time with your head stuck in a satellite broadcast fan.
I might have done, yes, absolutely. I may have been very happy and sort of forgotten about you two entirely. I know, frankly.
So this week's interview, which Matt brings us later on, is actually with a chap called Nick from Airability, and this is a company based here in the UK who provide flights and the ability for people to learn to fly who are less able than most people. And it's a brilliant little charity set up they've got there, and we're going to have that later on the show. We've also got a little segment that Matt's put together from my very recent trip to Malta. And we've got a little segment as well, which has been sent in by Armando.
Yeah, actually, in fact, what I think we should probably do is if we just run that now, actually, because he's giving his apologies, essentially. So, if you've been wondering why Armando's been missing for the last couple of weeks, then this would be why.
Hey guys, good morning. So the last couple weeks I have not been on the show, and we've mentioned that I'm out at the Reno Air Races. So this is pretty much my domain. Here's some sport class airplanes. Some T6s right behind me, and down the line there's jets, there's unlimited P-51s, I've mentioned quite a few times that if anybody ever gets a chance to come out to the Reno Air Races, absolutely do so. But you can also watch it live at airrace.org. That's airrace.org, and they have a live stream, and NBC Sports is also filming this, so it'll come out on YouTube here in a couple months. So miss you guys. Hopefully I'll get a chance to at least listen while I'm on the ramp, and we'll talk to you soon. If you're watching the YouTube feed, enjoy some videos from some biplane races, sport class races, a lot of the cool airplanes that are out here, and even the weather, which is pretty sporty out here sometimes.
Love that noise. Come on, this is where you're supposed to be telling us exactly what all these aeroplanes are, Carlos.
They're very quick.
Okay, right.
Very fast, agile aircraft.
Those are racing aircraft.
Right, okay.
It's the latest state-of-the-art fire equipment just coming on there.
Yeah. Tony's got a great comment in the chat room here, actually saying Armando is like a kid in a candy store. Look at that.
Don't forget, for those of you who are watching or listening to the audio version, if you take yourselves over to YouTube and catch the feed, you'll be able to see some awesome video, which we're currently watching, of the air races and, of course, of Armando.
Yeah, he's busy.
That's a B-25 Mitchell. I can give you that one.
That's very good. Look at it, it's a fantastic rainbow and stuff there. So thank you very
It's a
much.
golf cart.
Oh, hello. More noise. So this is going to sound like a silly question. Where is the Reno Air the Reno Air Races? I assume are held in Reno.
Reno, Nevada, the biggest little city in the world, is what it's known for.
Now that's not a million miles away from Las Vegas, is it? If I seem to recall.
It's north of Las Vegas, closer to actually it's closer to San Francisco than it is Sacramento, than it is California, than it is to Las Vegas.
Ah, fantastic.
Lake Tahoe.
That's brilliant. Well, as I say, we can always rely on the legend that is Armando for some great video content. We've been very lucky, really, sort of. With
Those are pit specials.
Yes, we're familiar with those. Absolutely. There we are. That's well. Thank you, Armando.
Thanks, Armando.
So yes, your apologies have been accepted. You carry on.
Yeah, that's very good. Very good. I like that.
Yeah, definitely.
I like that. We've probably got some more of those coming as well. I think Armando's doing some other videos as well to
so he's not
show.
slacking in his absence.
No,
he's working very hard trying to get as much.
No, I haven't seen him on Slack in quite some time.
Again, I see what you did there. Very good.
So back to task.
Back to reality.
Back to reality. So quick update on my return yesterday, actually, to Luton. I've got to say a big thumbs down to London Luton. It was the worst experience that I've ever had in an airport in my life.
I can say save all that for when we're running your little video. Really, an hour, right? Okay, cases. All right, yes, he's a bit distressed about it, but all will be coming up later on with that. So we better get on with the task.
We are going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Micah.
I'm ready.
Matt.
I think.
Yeah, born ready.
Go, let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story on this Sunday morning. It's on the businessinsider.com website, and it's more 737 MAX woes, as always. And
we're starting the show with that,
I know.
Aren't we? Okay.
So, the headline on here...
Everyone get depressed. Here we go.
A former Boeing official is pleading the Fifth Amendment after being subpoenaed for documents in the US Justice Department's probe of the 737 MAX. So the story goes on. A former Boeing official who was subpoenaed to testify and all about his role in the development of the 737 MAX, has refused to provide documents sought by federal prosecutors, according to the Seattle Times, citing his Fifth Amendment right against forcible self-incrimination. Mark Faulkner, who was Boeing's chief technical pilot on the 737 MAX project during the development of the plane, was responding to a grand jury subpoena. The US Justice Department is investigating 2 fatal crashes of the jet and is looking into the design and certification of the aircraft, according to a person familiar with the matter cited by the Seattle Times. The Fifth Amendment provides legal right that can be invoked by a person in order to avoid testifying under oath, because the amendment is used to avoid being put in a situation where one would have to testify about something that would self-incriminating. It can sometimes be seen by outsiders as an implicit admission of guilt, although that's not always the case. It's less common to invoke the Fifth to resist a subpoena for documents or evidence. According to legal experts, its use by Faulkner could simply suggest a legal manoeuvre between Boeing's attorneys and prosecutors. Faulkner left Boeing in 2018, according to his LinkedIn page, and is currently a first officer flying for Southwest Airlines. The Justice Department's investigation into the 2 crashes, which occurred in October 29th in Indonesia and in March 10th in Ethiopia, is a wide-ranging exploration into the development of the plane. The investigation has also grown to include records related to the production of a different plane, the 787, at Boeing's Charleston, South Carolina plant, although it's not clear whether those records have anything to do with the MAX. So preliminary reports into the 2 crashes that led to the grounding of the MAX indicate that the automated system erroneously engaged and forced the aircraft to nose down. I mean, we've all read the reports and bits and pieces about these crashes, and we all know about the MCAS system. So basically, this guy has obviously worked for Boeing. He doesn't want to, obviously
be named essentially,
doesn't want to go to jail, I would imagine.
True,
no one wants to go there, but it's all, honestly, Micah, you obviously live in the country where this is kind of big news as such, I would say. What do you think of it all?
One of the things that bothers me about this is that they're trying to prosecute over what is obviously a mistake. And I think that it's turned into a lot of media hype in that direction, even in terms of the prosecution, because while I think that Boeing has definitely fouled up and done a lot of really stupid things in terms of their development, I don't think there was malfeasance involved. And if there's no malfeasance, why are they trying to prosecute them? Why are federal prosecutors all over them? Do you think that, do you believe, and I don't know, that this was all done intentionally, that they wanted the planes to crash,
Indeed.
that they wanted to kill people, that the whole intent was to cut things short, to get things done so quickly? That's not Boeing. Now, they have a really terrible culture going on there, as we'll learn with a couple of other stories going on. But I don't think it's a kind of thing like what happened in Brazil a few years ago when a pilot crashed an airplane, people died, some American pilots, and they wanted to get the pilots back into Brazil to prosecute them for having what turned out to be engine problems. This was design problems. There are design problems. There are certainly issues with the aircraft, but and it needed to be grounded when it was originally grounded. We're not sure that it needed it at the time. Maybe we're learning that it did. But was it an intentional thing? Was it done with malfeasance? I don't think so.
Well, of course, the answer there is no. Of course, it is just one of those. But I think this is the problem with life in general, isn't it? Really, now there is very much a suing and/or blame culture that is very much existent there. I guess people just. Also, people have lost lives, I suppose. So I suppose they, in some respects, perhaps they do deserve to be compensated for what happened. Especially if it does turn out to be an error.
And Neil points out in the chat room, you can be criminally negligent without having intent, and that's true as well. But again, I think that this was some bad design issues, and when DC-10s crashed, when people was Douglas at that point prosecuted for it? I don't think so. We're in a strange culture these days.
Yeah, Tony's saying surely someone at Boeing needs to take responsibility, and I have to confess, whilst I completely accept what you're saying, I do feel that somebody's got to take responsibility for what happened, because you could argue perhaps that testing wasn't as thorough as it perhaps should have been or could have been, or I'm just surprised that something like this wasn't picked up in testing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, it gets to a point, and as Colonel Jeff said at one time when he was our guest on the Geeks, he said that the electronics, and computers become so involved that you can't even test for everything. You don't know what it's going to do. And think about the glitches that you have when a new Windows system comes out.
Oh, yes.
And you have beta this, beta that, whatever. And even when you finally release it, you have a problem.
Yeah.
Well, there's so many electronics in the aircraft that you don't know what you're testing for. And if you don't know what you're testing for, you don't know what's going to happen necessarily. You can't test for it.
True.
That's part of the issue.
No, and that's a good, fair point.
And this story will carry on.
Carry on. I mean, this is the thing. People are saying, "Oh, I'm never getting on a Max," as I say, and I know, and you guys know that I've said before. Actually, when they do finally put it back in the air, I'm going to be more inclined as a nervous flyer to want to fly on a Max than I am. Studio. Well, indeed, yes, the only one that never got in the air. Yeah. But when there's when they do finally get it back in the air, it's going to be, not only is it going to be being watched like a hawk for the slightest little hiccup or glitch or whatever. I mean, this thing, I reckon, is going to be one of the safest aircraft out there because because of the sheer scrutiny that is now involved in the Max.
Well, can I suggest, based on that we skip to story number 4 right now, because that has something to do directly with that.
Oh, okay, yeah, cool. Okay, so I will do that. Bear with me a moment. Sorry, I got the wrong story open based on that. So we'll go with story. So this is on the Bloomberg.com website.
Correct.
And the headline is... sorry, I'm just trying to get rid of me...
pop-ups?
Yes. Just busy dealing with pop-ups. One moment, caller. This didn't go very well, so we'll say submit preferences. That'll hopefully make it go away. There we go, we're away. So as I say, Bloomberg.com is the website, and the headline is Aviation CEOs warn of Europe/US split on Boeing 737 MAX review. Aviation executives are increasingly worried that a widening split between regulators in the US and Europe will extend the grounding of Boeing 737 MAX, sowing confusion and fear as officials work to approve the resumption of commercial flights after 2 deadly crashes. Sounding the alarm this week over the increasingly tenuous alliance were Angus Kelly, who heads the largest global jet lessor, and United Airlines boss Oscar Munoz, Andre de Juniac, who heads the global airline trade group IATA, and he was worried and disappointed by the lack of unity among regulators. Aircraft financing pioneer Stephen Uvahazi. Now I know that. Has he got something to do with the museum?
He's the one that donated most of the money for it.
I see, right, yeah. Yes, okay. And he called it uncharted territory. The regulatory discussions, which had been playing out behind closed doors, spilled out into the open after the head of the European Union Aviation Safety Agency said this week that his group was conducting its own study of Boeing's design changes along with the broader review. Under standard procedures used in past accidents, regulators would have delegated authority to the Federal Aviation Administration, which takes the lead in overseeing US-built jets. The challenge of the moment is certification, says Kelly, Chief Executive Officer of AerCap Holdings NV, in an interview on Thursday with Bloomberg TV. When will this airplane be permitted to fly on a global basis? What is unclear is if the European authorities are diverging on issues like the need for hardware changes to the MAX, or are being diligent with a widening review of Boeing's jetliner, grounded for nearly 6 months, said Richard, who is the aerospace analyst of Teal Group. It's tough to filter out negative messaging because everyone involved needs to show their concern and diligence. There is also the spectre of politics rearing its head. It's the worst case and highly unlikely, but nonetheless it's on people's minds. So Boeing's timeline. Boeing has said that the MAX is still on track to be cleared by the US regulators early in the fourth quarter. Southwest Airlines, who is the largest operator of the plane, thinks the go-ahead is likely to happen in early to mid-November. Airlines will need to make a range of preparations to ready the planes after they're approved to fly, and Southwest has removed the MAX from its schedule through to early January. We continue to work with the FAA and global regulators on addressing their concerns in order to safely return the MAX to service, Boeing said in an email.
I think we can all agree that it's, even when this is all sorted out and the airlines, they get the go ahead to fly this aircraft again, it's going to take a phenomenal amount of time to get all of these aircraft back up again and flying.
As the article says here, though, this is unprecedented, isn't it? Because normally, if there's been an incident like this, the European agencies would normally just say, because it was, they would just refer it to the FAA. It's almost like, I don't know, is there an element of trust that's been lost here over this?
I think that's the big story. I think that the big story is that the USA, for whatever reason, and I don't want to get political here, but it's lost its integrity. I think there's a tremendous amount of integrity lost between what's happening here politically, what's happening in the UK politically, and what recently happened in terms of what the FAA has done with this. There's no trust when the not Lion Air, when the Ethiopian crash took place, rather than sending the black boxes to the FAA or the National Transportation Safety Board to be reviewed, which is the standard case, they went to France and they were reviewed there. And it was the plane was grounded by Trump, who said we're going to ground it, who has no authority to do that. But well, I guess he does, because technically he oversees the FAA. But again, there's an integrity issue here. But what it means from the good side, and what we were just saying, is that, okay, it's going to be reviewed by the FAA and they're going to pass it. But now YAS is saying, we want to do it ourselves. So in terms of it being the safest plane out there when it comes back, I think it probably will be.
Absolutely.
Good point from Tony S in the chat room. Just says he's amazed it's been grounded so long, and it just shows what a can of worms the certification process was.
Yeah. Again, that's very fair comment, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, moving on to the next story, and
so we'll pass this one to Micah.
BA
then,
one,
BA
Micah, you're taking the reins from Nev this week.
And speaking of a lack of integrity, let's talk about British Airways.
Oh no, can open worms everywhere.
Well, it's just how it goes sometimes. Now, what website is this from? This is from 1 Mile at a Time.
That's it.
British Airways pilots lose flight benefits after the strike. And British Airways pilots have spent Monday and Tuesday on strike, bringing the British Airways operation to a standstill. While British Airways has always had their fair share of strikes, it's incredibly rare to see their pilots go on strike, and this was the first time that it's happened in decades. Management and the union simply could not come up to an agreement for a new contract, and despite multiple attempts at reaching a deal, could not happen. So this shouldn't come as much of a surprise, but management is now playing dirty, doing everything they can to send a message to the pilots. The Sun is reporting that British Airways has just cut flight benefits for pilots for the next 3 years. One of the best perks of working in the airline industry is free or discounted flights, typically on a space available basis. Ultimately, these benefits are offered at discretion of the airline, and British Airways is now exercising their discretion. Now, I note, I'm quoting here from the paper, now I'd note that it's highly unlikely that the suspension of benefits sticks. While it's said to be for 3 years, as of now, clearly this is an attempt to punish the pilots, and also as a bargaining tool for if and when they do reach an agreement. They can restore these flight benefits as part of any agreement they reach. Now, what my question is with this is that how does that say for pilots? I'm guessing it's going to affect, a lot of British Airways pilots commute from, say, Spain. What if they need to work? Are they paying for their own? Are they paying for their own time to commute now, back and forth, or is it just pleasure flights? Like if you want to come home, or go on a pleasure trip. I'm not sure how that affects people.
I mean, the thing that worries me most about this is, it's now weirdly, because we were talking about this on WhatsApp while I was away on holiday, and myself and Gemma are currently having a disagreement with Carlos in regards to the actual strikes, because we're sort of, I don't know, I suppose we've got business hats on, and Carlos obviously is looking at it from the pilot's point of view, which is completely correct, I know, as well me and Gemma are perhaps looking at it from a PA slash sort of, passenger perspective. I mean, there are lots of things that really concern me about this, and I think it's safe to say they are very well known as being some of the most well-paid pilots in the industry, and that, I suppose, shouldn't be the only reason that perhaps I feel uncomfortable about and it isn't the only reason I feel uncomfortable about the strikes. But when you think, you've got people who are flying for the likes of Ryanair and EasyJet who aren't, who haven't got anywhere near a good a deal, I don't know. I just, if they were on low wages, I'd be the first one to be out there with me placard, busy waving it around. But I don't know. I feel a bit uncomfortable about it.
There are two more paragraphs that I'm only just reading for the first time that I think are important, and that is, it's just what I said. What makes this interesting as well is that many pilots commute to work, and they don't live where they're based, and they rely on their benefits to get to and from work, and that the Sun suggests that even those benefits are suspended. However, the final paragraph more or less says that while perhaps not terribly relevant, I'd note that the Sun's coverage of this is incredibly slanted. We all have our opinions. But if reporting that flight benefits are being taken away, some of the commentary seems to be a bit much. For example, the Sun can reveal that 6 of the mega-rich 13 BALPA union board members who ordered the crippling pilot strike live abroad. And they're also, this is another quote from the Sun, they are so rich they can afford to fly to London, often paying to overnight in a hotel from homes in Ireland, Spain, and France before starting work flying duties. So,
I mean, that should be the, that I suppose that it's a bit of a grey area, I suppose, in regard to it. But I should. Is
the Sun a slanted paper over there in the UK? I'm not familiar with it. It's not one that
it's a rubbish newspaper.
We'll send you a copy.
We'll
send you a copy.
No, we won't. There is one thing I would like to actually just sort of highlight, perhaps, is because obviously we've had the strike action last week of BA, and the week before that, obviously, we had the Ryanair strike, didn't we? I think it's interesting to note. Really, it was actually a tweet that Flight Radar 24 put out, which is what started our discussion, if you see what I mean. And one of the things that was fairly relevant, I thought, was the fact that when Ryanair had their strike, which was out of their base at Stansted there, the amount of affected flights was 0 on the first day of the strike. There were 0 flights that were affected by the strikes. I suppose that's the big advantage that someone like Ryanair would have, because all of their pilots are trained to fly their only aircraft, which is the 737-800. So that's sort of, I suppose they're always going to have a massive advantage. So, and they've got bases all over Europe, so they've got pools of pilots that they can pull in to just cover a couple of days worth of strikes at Stansted. One thing that was a bit of a surprise, I'm just going to share this tweet with everyone. If you didn't see it from Flight Radar 24 at the time, it's very, very relevant, I felt, in the fact that there was one. That's the total amount of British Airways flights that we are now tracking right now. One flight during the strike. So at that particular time that they did this, we had one BA flight in the air, and I believe that had come from South Africa or something like that, and it was, I think it's because it was in the air before the strike started.
That was stolen.
It was stolen, so that's it. So it's, it was certainly a very effective strike, and I'm sure I was reading reports where this is probably going to cost BA billions. Isn't it?
A few billion,
yeah, absolutely, for all the inconvenience.
And airfares have gone up all over. Because since British Airways is such a huge organization, such a huge airline, and now that their flights weren't in the air, from what I read, some places that all the other international airlines that fly the same routes have been able to raise their prices.
Well, of course they have. I mean, and why wouldn't you? And I don't mean this, I'm sorry that, but you can't blame the airlines themselves for actually capitalising on the fact that, they can make a few extra quid by sort of dealing with this strike on their behalf. Because let's be honest, a lot of these flights will have had to have been paid for by BA.
That's true, but on the other hand, if there's a disaster, such as when the hurricanes are in Florida, stores are not allowed to raise the prices on generators, other essentials. So isn't this the same thing?
I don't know. Can you really put air travel as classed as an essential thing? I don't know.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
No, but you two are weird. You like flying. That's my idea of hell.
So next story, sticking with BA again, because we do love a BA story. This one's on the bbc.co.uk website. And more strikes are due. So for those of you listening who may have some flights booked soon this month, listen, because the headline, BA cancels 27th of September or 27 September flights ahead of the next pilot strike. So BA have started emailing passengers to cancel flights 2 weeks ahead of another strike that's planned by pilots. Industrial action on the 27th of September, when's that, Matt? Have a look, when's that? Is expected to affect hundreds of flights and tens of thousands of passengers. The dispute is over a pay rise, which pilots says is not high enough. When is it, Matt?
2 Fridays' time.
2 Fridays' time.
So not the 20th, but the 27th.
So pilots staged a 48-hour walkout, as we all know, early in the week, forcing 200,000 passengers to change their travel plans. A spokesperson or spokeswoman for BA said the decision had been made to give customers as much certainty as possible. Passengers were being offered a full refund or to rebook on alternative dates or airlines. They said that they're very sorry that BALPA's actions will affect thousands more travel plans, she said, and we urge them to call off the strike and return to negotiations. So it says here the airline has previously estimated the strike would cost £40 million a day.
Oh, but perhaps I was doing them a terribly... Oh, a day. Okay.
A day.
Yeah, all right,
and BALPA called the decision to cancel flights irresponsible and inconsiderate to its customers and said that it was a strategy designed to save the airline money. By giving passengers 2 weeks' notice, the airline avoids having to pay compensation.
Oh, wow.
That's handy. BALPA said it had to set the record, had to set the second strike period at the later date to allow time for negotiations to take place, but that BA had not responded to its latest proposals. The union said that it had given BA multiple opportunities to work with them to avoid the strikes. BA has also said it has offered pilots a pay rise of 11.5% over a 3-year period, which it says would boost the pay of some captains to £200,000 a year. However, BALPA says many of its members earn much less than that, with new pilots starting on less than £30,000. When BA cancelled flights a fortnight ahead of the 2-day strike earlier in the week, it mistakenly cancelled extra flights as well. The airline was forced to draft in extra customer relations staff over the August bank holiday weekend to deal with hundreds of thousands of phone calls and messages after customers found they could not get through to change their flights. So all I'm going to say on this is, as long as they don't strike at all in November, I'll be happy.
Of course.
Yeah. As will Nev.
Yeah. This is
Have they
true.
reported how much money it would cost them if they actually gave the pilots what they wanted?
No, and also I think it relevant to mention they have been given an offer. That's the thing. I mean, it's 11.5% pay rise. I think is quite, admittedly over several years. I know
over 3 years.
Over 3 years, but so it's not like they haven't brought something to the table to tempt them. I mean, again, like I said, this is the one thing that it's you and me who are being affected by this that I feel sort of most angry about, perhaps, with these strikes, because they are well paid. And I know I'm going to get lots of emails and lots of abuse for it, but
Matt at plaintalkinguk.com.
Thank you very much. Yes, and it's just and I do get it, as I say, but they have been given an offer, so it's not like BA has sort of just basically sort of shoved their head in the sand and said, we're not even entertaining this as a thing. But however you dress this up, I mean, the damage to BA's reputation over this must be
it's been a bit
huge.
Yeah.
Are benefits an issue as well here in the U.S.? I mean, your medical benefits are covered, directly through the government. Here in the U.S., medical benefits, retirement benefits are also usually included in these kinds of strikes.
Yeah.
Are we just only talking about money when the BA strike?
Seems like that's only from what I've seen, it's down to the pay, and I think there was something I read earlier as well that may have something to do with the pensions as well that the pilots get.
Okay.
And what are the pilots asking for? They've been offered 11.5% over 3 years. Do we know what they want?
No, that's been kept a little bit under the thing. And again, maybe this is again BA trying to sort of spin it so that people like me do actually feel sorry for the airline rather than the pilots. I mean, I'm the first to admit that I'm perhaps not as well as informed on this.
Actually, Auntie Liz does make the good point, and Nev would have said this had he have been here as well.
Of course,
that BA, the pilots did give up 11% a few years ago.
Yes, and that's actually fair point.
When BA were going through a bit of a
bit
period,
close to
the pilots did give up 11% to help the airline
sort of survive. Essentially. Yeah. Okay.
So
I mean, I'd like to know what the differences are, and we're not really getting the pilot side of the story.
No, that is true. No, perhaps. So if you do fly for BA and would be with genuinely,
I want to come on the show anonymously.
No, genuinely, if you do fly for BA and you would be interested in, it can be done anonymously if you're, if you'd be more comfortable
just to
doing
send
it.
an email to let us know what the information is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, absolutely, because we would genuinely be interested to know, as I say. So, I mean, obviously, I've put forward a slightly controversial view. I would be delighted to be corrected in regards to that. I would love to be given the reasons as to why. And as I say, also, I mean, perhaps that is a fault from BA in the fact that, if the pilots did help out the airline, and they haven't been compensated for the fact that they're now turning a healthy profit and stuff, you could understand why they would be cross.
A little bit, yeah.
Sure. I mean, it's perfectly reasonable to say, give us the 11% back that we gave to you, and now give us the raise that we should have gotten after we had.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's several years' worth of raises essentially that are missing, if you like. So they're only being offered what you didn't have when they tried to help the airline out.
We have to remember that we have some very good pilot friends, and they're usually pretty bright and they're pretty agreeable. So we need to look at what the pilots want as well.
We do, absolutely, yes. So if you are a pilot for BA, we would love to hear from you. Podcast at planetalkinguk.com. So it can be done anonymously. We'd just love to hear your side of the story.
Must be why Pilot Pip drives around in that Lamborghini.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. So the next story, moving on, is on BA's website, isn't it, Matt?
Oh, is it? Was it my go?
It's we're sticking with BA just for one last story. It's something actually that Micah picked up on a moment back.
Oh, is this about the fare hikes? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, did I read that they
glad
postponed them?
Glad we brought our tickets a few months ago.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's if your flight is going ahead. This is on CNN Travel. Sorry, I'll be quiet, Smith. CNNTravel.com, and the headline is British Airways strike sees fares rise by up to 2,100%. My goodness, is that a typo? Is that a typo? Is that real? 2,100%. Anyway.
2.1%. I think that is.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It does look like a.
I think that's 2.1%.
It's 2.1%. Okay, well, let's hope so. Anyway, this week, British Airways strikers caused chaos for an estimated 280,000 passengers who were due to fly with the airline. But it has also rocked up fares to destinations around the world by. No, it isn't a typo. It does say 2,100%.
Well, you'll see it when you go down to the last two paragraphs before the picture break.
All right, then, leaving the UK isolated amid sold-out routes and stratospherically priced flights. While air ticket prices are typically fluid and rises during the periods of heavy demand are not uncommon, one expert said that the level of increase seen during this strike was particularly extreme. A return flight this week from London to Nice in the south of France costs as much as £1,272, or that's $1,573. My goodness me, is the exchange rate that bad at the moment? Wow, for less than 2 hours in the air. That was the price offered on Monday morning for an EasyJet flight departing from London Gatwick Monday evening and returning Wednesday morning, returning Tuesday at a cost a little less than £1,055. Those fares, which did not include seat assignments, checked baggage or any food or drink, had sold out by 3 p.m. on the Monday. My goodness, Nice, the getaway to the south of France and the Italian Riviera, seemed particularly affected by the two-day strike. All 8 daily EasyJet flights from Nice to London were sold out on Monday and Tuesday, the British Airways strike days. The cheapest return flight on Wednesday, September the 11th, was £448.50, $555 one way. Meanwhile, British Airways was charging £694, that's $858, for a Nice to London Heathrow flight on Wednesday evening as it struggles to get back on schedule. British Airways is selling return fares to Nice on other dates in September for £58, making this week's flights nearly 22 times more expensive. The price hikes look set to worse hit business travellers on short turnaround trips. All flights from London to Denver on Monday were sold out, but flying out Tuesday morning and returning that evening would cost a staggering £4,378. That's $5,413 in economy, an inflation of 1,347% over British Airways' September lead-in fare of £325. That's $402 return. According to Airfare Specialist Flight Centre, the average cost of a return fare from London to Denver over the past 12 months has been around about the £425 or $526 mark. I mean, I could go on, but we sort of get the gist, basically. You can't really blame other airlines for cashing in on BA's misfortune, I suppose, because a lot of these flights, I guess, will be business flights or people travelling for work or business who still need to get to Nice to do their work. I guess you can't blame them for taking advantage of that.
Micah?
He's a little crazy. There's no doubt. And that was my concern. And sure enough, from $58 to $2,000,
yes,
it's a little bit of a jump.
Quite a jump. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I was just while you're doing the story, Matt, I was just blitzing through BA's website and looking at the prices of flights to Malta. Funnily enough,
there's a surprise
with BA. And I mean, when I researched for the flights for us to go, I looked at the usual EasyJet, Ryanair, and we ended up flying Ryanair, as you know. But just looking at BA's prices to fly to Malta, and it's just calculating my price now as we speak.
Oh right. Okay.
Bear in mind, I paid return for both of us £370 with Ryanair.
Okay. Well,
and BA.
Oh no! Right.
Oh, look at this, Matt. Here we go.
Oh my goodness! Right. Okay, that's quite a number.
So BA for the same flights. This is including a whole baggage, because obviously you have to put the whole baggage on as an extra cost. But for 370 odd quid that I paid with Ryanair, BA want £829 for the same flight.
But that includes soft drinks, doesn't it?
No, I don't think that does. I don't think you get a lot for that, actually. That's economy plus, so you do get a 23 kilo whole luggage bag. But 829 quid, yeah, I think you'd probably stay with glad I booked with the Ryanair. Right. As much as it pained me to say that, but yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, dear
but
Ryanair.
Anyway, moving on to the next story.
Yes.
Who's next?
And that would be Micah next. Yeah.
Micah, this is a spirit story for you.
Oh, I've got a lot of spirit. This is from the Airline Geeks, and the hidden bag fees bring Spirit to court. Now, first of all, for those who aren't familiar with Spirit, Spirit is an ultra-low-cost carrier here in the U.S., and I think this is actually great news. The Manhattan-based Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals ruled on Wednesday that Spirit Airlines could face a lawsuit from passengers who booked flights through third-party travel sites Expedia, Priceline, Travelocity, and Cheapo Air. Those are all airline aggregators. According to the decision, the 22 passengers who had previously been party to the lawsuit can sue the carrier for breach of contract because the airline and sites did not properly display information regarding carry-on bags. The court said that the customers in this case are able to sue because the airline did not notify them of those restrictions and was unclear on the prices that they would pay. This is a great victory for air travelers nationwide, the plaintiff's lawyer, John Hermina, told NBC Interview, and I tend to agree with him. While Spirit's legal team has been largely silent on the matter, I can't imagine why, the carrier did say that all the necessary terms and conditions are drawn out in its contract of carriage, which they keep invisible. I added that, which the airline claims should preclude it from any issues brought on by the plaintiffs. The decision gives renewed life to one of the first instances in which Spirit is facing a true legal backlash for its a la carte booking system, which allows the airline to provide lower base fares while giving passengers the opportunity to purchase everything from a seat assignment to the option to bring an extra carry-on or checked baggage, or even the option to pay online. But anyway, that now widespread ultra-lost carrier model is one that has seen the airline grow into a multi-billion-dollar company in the past over the past few decades, as it works to provide an alternative to the increasingly consolidated legacy airline market in the U.S. Largely, the Miramar, Florida-based airline capitalizes on profits from passengers who book the cheapest ticket possible, often dozens and sometimes hundreds of dollars cheaper than comparable tickets on legacy carriers. and then are later forced to purchase add-ons that can sometimes surpass the price of the original ticket. It's a practice that many swear by, often jumping on the carrier's $50 tickets and traveling with nothing more than an under-the-seat carry-on bag for sometimes a shockingly inexpensive few days away. However, those tendencies have often caught many off guard. In 2014, after Spirit ranked first among airlines in customer complaints due to the Department of Transportation, a spokesperson remarked to Reuters that the airline believed a lot of those complaints stemmed from quote, customers not fully understanding what we offer, unbundled fares that let them control how much they spend. Boy, that's a spin on things, isn't it? But that unbundling tends to favor those who are well educated on Spirit's business model. While the savvy can play the game to their advantage, the infrequent traveler is often taken aback, which can lead to many spending hundreds of dollars to pay for checked bags at the airport when they had thought that their cheap base fare was all that was needed to get them from their origin to the destination. While that, of course, is not in any way grounds for a lawsuit, it may be the impetus for this case, one that could force the airline to be more transparent across all platforms in a quest to better educate the prospect Spirit passenger.
Wow.
I think that's good news.
Well, and you were saying that they'd lost the case, I think. Yeah.
Yes, at first it was ruled against the plaintiffs, and now that they're saying, you can sue. Absolutely. They did not disclose the information appropriately on those sites, and I think it's important. I say buyer beware, but I think you can't beware if you're not given the information. And I think that's what the issue is. Those aggregator sites, Expedia, Priceline, Travelocity, Cheapo Air, and there are others, will give you a base price, but you don't know what's included and what's not. And that's what the passenger needs to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it forces Spirit and the other low-cost carriers to say exactly what you're getting for your $50, which you automatically know on Ryan and EasyJet, etc. But you don't know the ultra low-cost carrier is a pretty new thing here in the U.S.
I'll tell you one of the things I noticed, Matt, when I travelled back or to Malta and back from Malta yesterday with Ryanair, the amount of people who are now not bringing big carry-ons onto the plane. Yeah,
okay.
It was quite shocking actually, because normally you're used to people bringing those little mini suitcases on board the aircraft and stowing in the overhead bins. But I have to say, there was not many people doing that yesterday. Most people had like laptop-sized bags, or the women had handbags, stuff like that carrying on the aircraft. There was not as many people bringing larger carry-on bags on the aircraft.
Wow.
You know, I think we've talked about this before here on PTUK, but I really think that the charge should not be for carry-ons. The charge should be for carry-ons, and checked luggage should be free, because then we're going to get faster boarding and faster deplaning. And the checked luggage can be moved by the professionals. So you let the checked luggage be free, be free, and you charge for all carry-ons on all aircraft when you do that.
Yeah, I mean, was it such a bad model though before though, where it sort of included having a suitcase underneath? I mean, it was just,
it was, unless you're the person that never traveled, that never checked the bag.
Well, there is that. There is that, I suppose. It's just sort of just a sort of tricky one. I mean, I get where they've got they've got to try and make money, I suppose, from these extra charges. I mean, that's how they make it low cost, isn't it? By essentially, I mean, no frills literally means no frills.
It's a marketing scheme, and I can't stand it, because they say we've unbundled it. Many people don't like our airline food, so we won't serve you unless you want to pay an extra $20 for your sandwich. Yeah. And many people never get a soda or whatever. So we're not going to give you the soda or a bottle of water, because so many people don't do it. But if you want it, we have it available for you. You just have to pay $20 for a half-liter bottle of water, or whatever it happens to be. So, they try to market it as being positive for the consumer, but in the long run, you're losing things, because how many people don't get a bottle of water or don't want a meal on them?
Yeah, I mean, I quite often when I'm flying Ryanair, I actually quite like their panini.
I must admit, they smell nice. They did smell.
The ham and cheese
nice
panini
yesterday.
they do is absolutely delicious, and they got quite good snacks and stuff like this. But that's the thing. It's like, if you don't want it, then you don't have to pay for it. I mean, that's the thing, I suppose.
I'll tell you what I did have, and I'll tell you what, I'm not going to. This very often say something like this, but
Okay,
Ryanair.
brace yourselves,
But
everyone.
I have to say, I genuinely have to say that I purchased a coffee on board yesterday.
Oh, the
for the flight
Lavanza
home.
coffee.
And
Was it the one with the filter
yes,
thing? Oh, it's
and
amazing.
the coffee was
Yeah.
actually
The
really,
most delicious
really,
coffee.
really good.
Yeah.
And I must admit, it was very, very, and
Yeah.
it was better than most other airlines' coffees that I've tried before on bigger airlines.
Do you know
Did
what?
you pay for it?
And I paid for it, yes, obviously.
Yeah.
No,
£4
what did you
million
pay
What
pounds.
was it? Yeah, £4 million.
Oh God! Now you got me. I don't know.
50 quid?
I done it on the.
No, it's about.
I done it on the old chip and pin thing
I
on
seem
my
to remember
card.
it's about sort of €3, £3 or £4. It's not actually
Yeah.
that expensive. I seem
No, I
to
think it
recall.
was
Is that about the same as what you'd be paying in Starbucks or whatever?
Yeah. Well, it wasn't a million miles away. Bearing in mind you were in the air and that. I mean, I have to confess, a mutual friend of all of ours who has left working for that airline. Brought me a very large stack of those coffees that I merrily worked my way through while I was. I love that coffee. It's Lavanza, isn't it? But it's so well. It's different. Sorry, if you haven't come across this, basically what it is it's what I call bean coffee. So it's grounded coffee beans that have been put into the not styrofoam, is it? But like the plasticky cup type thing.
Yeah.
And what they do is you pour the hot water straight into it, but into the lid, it's built the filter that you drink it through. So essentially, you've got percolated coffee that's made for you fresh and there, but you drink it through. You feel a bit weird putting all your sugar and milk into the sludge that's underneath the filter. But I promise you, it is one of the nicest coffees you'll ever have on an airline.
Oh, I
Genuinely.
could use one right about now. It's 8 o'clock in the morning here.
Yeah, let's go. Don't worry, you'll be able to have one soon.
Yeah, coffee time will be
Coffee
coming
time
up
soon.
shortly. Yeah,
Let's
So-
all go out for brunch.
The I wish we could. The next story on simpleflying.com, and is it me? It must be
it
me.
is you.
It's
Yes,
me.
yeah. Sorry.
This one is SAS, or Scandinavian Air Services, to unveil new A350 livery on September the 19th.
exciting.
That's not far away either,
No,
is it?
It's not.
Yeah, it's
4
not. It's only a
days.
few days away. So Scandinavian Airlines, SAS, are announcing that they will unveil the new livery on its first Airbus A350-900 on the 19th of September. The carrier teased the arrival of the new aircraft on Twitter, giving expectant avgeeks some pieces of the puzzle, but not quite the whole picture. SAS has invited media.
Just look at that. It's a very moody
It looks
picture,
good.
isn't it? That's
So
quite a...
SAS have invited media from all over the world. Where was our invite? To a presentation in Copenhagen on the 19th of September, where the colour scheme of the new long-haul aircraft will be revealed. This subject has caused considerable speculation among aircraft buffs, with SAS itself noting that its livery hasn't been changed since 1998. So while there has been considerable speculation among aircraft buffs about the colour of the aircraft, the teaser video does seem to indicate that blue colouring will be central to the new design. Good, because I like blue. However, SAS has stated that the new design probably won't go live across its fleet until 2024. The A350 entered service with its launch operator Qatar Airways back in January 2015, but since has been superseded by the A350-1000. The sequel to the 900 model was also debuted by Qatar in February 2018. Since its launch over 4 years ago, the A350-900 has proved popular with numerous airlines. Several carriers have already placed orders in place for the 900 models to add to their fleet, with Lufthansa, Starlux Airlines, Virgin Atlantic and Air China all having confirmed multiple orders for the Airbus jetliner. Other carriers linked with the A350-900 include Air France, KLM. Air France has been confirmed as having orders for 28 of the aircraft, including a number of switched over from the original KLM order. Singapore Airlines has been another enthusiastic customer of the -900 model, with the carrier already having confirmed it will begin flying the Airbus aircraft into the capital of New Zealand, Wellington, in November. And Singapore signalled its intention to replace the Boeing 777-200 with the Airbus A350-900 on its Singapore, Melbourne, Wellington route after extensive testing at Wellington Airport. However, even though this is a highly advanced aircraft, there have been safety concerns noted with the A350-900 during its short lifespan.
Oh, really?
A report from Rolls-Royce in August this year indicated that it may be necessary for additional inspections to be carried out on Airbus A350-900s as high-stress conditions can reduce the service life of its engine mounts. They should be in the studio then. That's always high-stress conditions. But no, it's good news for...
I'm very relaxed, how dare you?
It's good news for SAS. It'll be interesting to see what the livery is going to be like on the aircraft. I imagine.
I must admit, the little Twitter video that I played while you were reading that doesn't really give an awful lot away, it has to be said. It's just basically a blue square that keeps flashing over the aircraft. It's but that's it's 4 days away from being released, so that's landing sort of Thursday, Friday next week.
Thursday next week. So keep your eyes on Twitter, I suppose. SAS will probably
I guess that's where they'll release
releasing that. So So next story, Matt, is I love this story. This is pretty funky.
Is this the Forbes one?
Yes,
absolutely.
all about some. One thing I do like to do myself. Collect souvenirs from aircraft.
Crap. Yes, absolutely. I'm speaking as your wife in this particular scenario, collecting crap. Yeah, Carlos brought some sweets with him back from the airport, by the way, that are basically Haribo air shapes. So he's having a lovely time munching his way through all of those. Anyway, Forbes is the website, and the headline is the coolest airline souvenirs and how to get them. Part of flying first or business class is the bragging rights you get just sitting up front and enjoying meals created by celebrity chefs, beauty products from famous fashion brands, and snuggling up on a lie flatbed under designer sheets, of course. But airlines know that souvenirs can be a big part of the travel experience, and not to mention handy tools for in what?
Spit out, mate.
Engendering. I've never heard that word before. Engendering brand loyalty. That's why several international airlines offer their premium passengers and elites unique items to remember their flight by. Here are some of the coolest, cutest pieces of airline swag and how you can score them on your next flight. So KLM Delft houses.
That's pretty cool.
Right, we need to sort of pop this picture up. Actually, you take this story,
okay.
Carlos, because then I can pop those pictures up.
Yeah, so KLM have got these Delft houses. For those of you who might know Delft, I mean, I think my mum used to collect Delft.
A bit like what's the word? Like Clarice Cliff and that sort of thing. Very quite fancy pottery type.
Fancy
sort of
pottery. That's it. Yeah. So the airline started actually doing these, producing these. Back in the 1980s, but they're obviously doing these ones again for 100th edition. Used to fill them with alcohol, apparently, according to this as well, which is quite interesting. Okay. Virgin Atlantic. For those of you who have flown Virgin Atlantic, a lot of people I know have got these stashed away in their bedrooms and kitchens. It's the Virgin Atlantic salt and pepper shakers. These are really funky. These
have
are
you got some?
No, I haven't, but I do know. I think our Matt Caton has got some of these.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic!
We know quite a few people that have them, actually.
Oh, wow. Okay, they're really cool. I like those.
Which look really. I must admit, they do look cool.
Yeah, they're quite random, though.
We've also got American Airlines concierge key tags, which are made out of. I'm guessing this is aircraft grade aluminum. Or aluminium.
I beg your pardon.
Sorry, aluminium.
Yeah, I'd just like to remind you, it's the Plain Talking UK.
Okay,
podcast.
so these aluminium key concierge key fobs, concierge
the
key
MD-80
members.
look. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it was quite good.
Yeah.
Which have been cut out of an MD-80. Sorry, Captain Jeff, for that. But these are cut out of the
I hope
fuselage.
not while it was flying.
Well, yes, let's hope not.
Lufthansa.
Yeah, no, this one's a bit cheesy.
I like this one. Lufthansa were giving away in first class rubber ducks. Yeah, you did hear right there, rubber ducks.
I think the tie is particularly stylish.
I think the tie looks very fetching.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. I think it's kind of duck and crazy.
So this was back in 2004 when it was preparing to open its Uberlux first-class terminal at Frankfurt, complete with spa-style bathrooms. The airline decided to take place Lufthansa-branded rubber ducks on the side of every tub. That was quite good.
It's unusual as a gift. I'll give them that. I like the next one personally.
The next one is Finnair Platinum Lumo Tumi bags. For those of you who can afford expensive luggage, there's
they're
elite
flying
status.
business or first class.
I
They
know.
can afford a
Finnair
fancy case.
recently introduced Platinum Lumo level, is the latter. In order to achieve it, you must earn 450,000 tier points
my
in
goodness.
a year.
Wow.
350,000 of which must be earned on Finnair flights. Alternatively, you could travel on 150 One World airline flights.
Wow.
At least 100 of which must be on Finnair. Nev knows all
Thin
about
ice.
Finnair.
I don't know about.
We've also got Korean Air luggage tags.
These are quite cool.
These flying Korean Air first class sometime soon. If so, be sure you budget time to stop by by the airline's KAL or KAL first class lounge at Seoul Incheon Airport. Not only can you purchase or peruse the buffet, you can catch up on work and hang out in a relaxation pod, but you can also take advantage of a special service the airline offers its first class guests. You can request a personalised gold-hued metal luggage tag with an Airbus A380 emblazoned on the side, along with your name and Korean Air Pass Sky Pass number. Not only are they stylish, but they'll let everyone in the airport know that you are flying first class as you wheel your bag past.
And it is all about the bragging rights, let's be honest. So if you're going to do it, you want to shout about it, don't you?
No, for me, I have to say, one of the things that I do harbour quite a lot of at home are the
have you got
amenity kits.
Have you? Oh, I was going to say, I thought you have actually got a Lufthansa rubber ducky. Is that what you were so excited
No,
about?
I've got BA first kit, Virgin upper class amenity kit.
Who did
Air
you steal
Canada,
that from?
Air Canada,
Really?
Premium economy, premium kit. Yeah, I do like the airline kind of.
Have you ever flown first or business, Micah?
I have not flown first internationally. I used to fly first all the time back when it was just big wide seats, and I would fly that domestically, but not anything international.
Oh, yeah. I've done business once, and I decided that actually if this was how I was going to fly in future, then maybe I'd be all right about it. But it was
unfortunately,
reality.
15 grand a time.
Unfortunately, I mean, actually, it wasn't too bad because the only reason I ended up with it was a very cheap for like the return. I think. I mean, it did cost money. Don't get me wrong, but I think it was only like £300 or £400 more to come back in business class.
Auntie Liz says she has the salt and pepper shakers. This
Very
is pretty cool.
For which airline?
And that's for Virgin. And also Masha. Masha says, there's gin in the little Delft houses. There's gin inside.
Oh, gin. Now we're talking. Yeah. Oh, shush. Be quiet. Yes. Anyway, Micah, I wonder if I could trouble you to take the next story. It's on simpleflying.com.
When will each airline retire its Airbus A380?
When?
That's the headline.
Yeah.
The A380 was once seen as the future of the aviation industry, but not for long. But rising fuel prices and a passenger preference of frequency over capacity has seen the airlines quick to start retirement plans. Which airline will retire the A380 first? Well, let's explore. Emirates? Well, we begin with the airline that has the most A380s in its fleet, with 112 A380 aircraft delivered from an original order of 123, with options up to 162. The news that Emirates might retire their A380s would be news indeed. So far, all we know is that Emirates plans to use their A380s until they break down, retiring them as their lease ends or as they are fully paid off and retire for a major overhaul. Then Air France, the French flag carrier, has a fleet of 10 Airbus A380s based at Paris's Charles de Gaulle. However, the role of the aircraft in its fleet has already been put on notice in August of 2019 when the airline made plans to retire the type by 2022.
It's not that far away, is it?
No, it's coming right up. ANA actually fields one of the youngest A380 fleets, only entering into service this year, with 2 out of 3 delivered so far. ANA has them operating from Tokyo to Honolulu, with perhaps one one of the nicest fit-outs in the world. The aircraft is brand new for ANA, and it's unlikely they plan to retire them anytime soon.
The thing I love, the thing I love about the ANA, and I know we say this every single time we do, but the paint jobs that they do on the ANAs, I just absolutely love them. They're brilliant, aren't they?
Asiana Airlines operates a fleet of 6 A380s. The airline has been struggling financially, and it likely doesn't help that they use the gas-guzzling A380. So far, the airline has actually decided to keep the type in their fleet despite efforts to reduce cost and streamline operations. British Airways, IAG's British Airways, operates a fleet of 12. They so far have made no retirement plans and actually plan to use them to phase out the old Boeing 747. Isn't that a shame? With the new Boeing 777Xs and A350s on the way, British Airways could be in a good place to replace some of its older A380s. China Southern has a fleet of 5 A380s. Surprisingly, this is the only airline in the world that uses the A380 domestically on the Beijing-Hong Kong run, and also from Beijing to Guangzhou. Although these have not been very profitable, the airline also uses them from Los Angeles and Sydney. They have no plans to retire the type. Etihad, it hasn't not exactly followed suit with its Southern Emirates rival. They actually have 10 A380s in the fleet. On board, some passengers might experience, and this is something I've always wanted to fly, the residence two-room cabin that has its own bathroom and lounge area for extreme onboard privacy. The airline has made no plans to retire the type, although we could expect this to change as the aircraft heads toward their 10th year in operation. Korean Air has 10 A380s. Originally, there was a rumor that the airline was planning to start retiring the type in 2018, but that's come and gone, and no aircraft has left Korean Airlines. Lufthansa has a fleet of 14 A380s, but has already made plans to sell off 6. And according to World Airline News, the 20 Boeing 787-9 Dreamliners and 20 additional Airbus A350-900s will primarily be replacing the 4-engine aircraft. The new planes will be delivered between late 2022 and 2027. Malaysia Airlines has a fleet of 6 A380s. They tried to get rid of the aircraft back in 2015 due to a financial crisis, but actually ended up keeping them for the time being. They don't have any plans to remove them. Qantas, 12 A380s. They had an order in this year for another 8, which along with Emirates was canceled when Airbus folded the new production type. They plan to retire the A380s by 2030. Qatar, or Qatar, the last of the Middle Eastern trio. Qatar has a fleet of 10 A380s. They have only hinted that they will retire the aircraft when they reach 10 years old. That will be in 2024. Singapore Airlines originally had a fleet of 12 A380s, but has already started to retire the aircraft, with the first taken out of service in 2017.
Oh, wow.
And they plan on replacing the A380s with A350s. Thai Airways International has a fleet of 6, and they are delaying the retirement of their 747 fleet, and it's unlikely they plan to retire the A380s anytime soon. And also, there's an A380 that's flying in the sky today that belonged to High Fly, and that aircraft is actually one of the retired Singapore A380s.
I think they're about to take on. Was it last week or the week before we were reading? They're actually about to get a second A380.
Yeah, they're going to get another one.
They seem to. But I suppose it's because their model is different, isn't it? I suppose because it's all about hiring out. It's a wet lease, isn't it? So it's ready to go, sort of. So I suppose an A380, if you're having to wet lease something, you don't really care what size the aircraft is, as long as you can sort of complete the contract, I guess. But
you get an airline like Norwegians that's having trouble, and they say, "Hey, you want the airplane? This is what you pay."
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
you don't want any trouble.
No. Just open your checkbook and pass it on. So, I mean, do you think though, Micah, genuinely, do you think that people will have the same love for the A380 when they start retiring it as people do the 747? Do you think there's that?
Absolutely not. No, I really don't think so.
Really?
I think that, I think it's I was only inside one once. It was empty. It was the one that was being retired by Airbus that we saw in Farnborough, I guess 3 years ago now. And Brian and I had a tour of it, and it's huge and it's wonderful. But it's a bus, it's basically a coach. Granted, they have some of them fit out just beautifully, but if you're not if you're in first class or business class, you're going to have a good experience pretty much regardless of the aircraft. And the A380, not that it's not a beautiful airplane to look at. It's not as beautiful as the A340 or the A350. It's got that high forehead, but so do I.
Well, we'll stick with the last. We'll move on to the last story, and we're sticking with Airbus for that. And the headline on the Business Insider website is that Airbus is introducing a feature on its new planes to track everything you do, including how often you go to the bathroom, which is a bit personal. So it's Airbus aircraft are about to get a whole lot smarter. The aviation company announced on Wednesday that it has begun in-flight trials with its newest cabin technology, which connects passengers and crew to elements of the plane, including the seats, cargo, and even the lavatories. Airbus first unveiled plans for its connected experience at the Airline Passenger Experience Association Expo last year. The Internet of Things, the IoT platform, links real-time information from cabin components, including the meal trolleys and overhead bins, to crews and passengers aboard the flight in order to create a more personalised and digitally traceable experience. According to a company press release, the data consolidated from the platform will be uploaded to the Skywise cloud service, an open data platform developed by Airbus for the aviation industry. According to Airbus, the platform provides significant benefits for flight crews, which will allow them to allow information like meal and seat preferences in one place, and can facilitate remote communication with those on board. For passengers, the system allows for a more personalised travel experience, while airlines will be able to utilise aggregated cabin equipment to cabin equipment trends, say for example which lavatory is most frequently used during a flight, to perform predictive maintenance on cabin elements. Overhead bins, the company said, would be linked to sensors which indicate to passengers which spaces are free. The company has begun trialling the smart system and connected cabin components to its A350-900 Flight Lab aircraft based at its Hamburg facility, claiming it is the first aircraft manufacturer to carry out such testing. These include an iSeat by Recaro, which comes outfitted with sensors in the armrest, backrest and tray table, and a connected gallery area, and a remote wireless cabin management system. According to Apex, the company is also testing smart cameras outside the lavatories to measure passenger wait times. Ingro Wutetzer, who is the Airbus's Vice President of Cabin Marketing, said Tuesday at the aviation trade show in Los Angeles that the technology would help flight attendants measure when someone inside the lavatory may need assistance. According to Bloomberg, each seat will signal green when the seatbelt is fastened and red when unbuckled. The goal of the system, it says, is to make boarding and in-flight security checks more efficient. The company hopes to roll out the technology not only on its test aircraft but also onto its fleet of A321 planes in 2021 and its larger A350 series in 2023. It's not a concept, it's not a dream, it's reality, is how they ended the article. I mean, I can see why this would be beneficial to cabin crew, for example, because they can tell from a panel if somebody has put the seatbelt on. I suppose the only downside to that is they could be sat on the seat and have the seatbelt done up behind them, and it would still show them a green light. So I suppose you are still going to have cabin crew just sort of have a cursory glance at your belt as they walk down the thing.
Not necessarily. I mean, if it could be kind of set up so that once the seatbelt's connected and it's taut, that
yeah, true. Yeah.
But I have other issues with this in terms of privacy and how it fits into the European right to be forgotten, because technically, and I know that I'm a nut and I'm an old guy, but you're measuring what my intake is. Then you're seeing when I go to the bathroom. Are you measuring what my output is? Is that going to be sold to my insurance agency, to my medical insurance, or to my doctor? What is that information going to be used for? Where does it go after they're done with it? And you don't know where it's going to go, how it's going to be used, how long it's going to be stored, what the privacy is with it, and that's data that they just don't need. Sometimes data is collected for the sake of collecting data, and that's where I get concerned.
No, and that is a valid point. I completely understand why you would say that. I don't know. I mean, perhaps the IT guy in me would argue that actually knowing which toilet is getting the most use and therefore building the opportunity to get preventative maintenance, or knowing that it will, actually when we land we can't leave this one, it will need emptying before we leave. It's just I can see why data like that would be useful. Anything that helps to make life easier for the captains and the first officers and the cabin crew has got to have some kind of sort of tactical advantage, I suppose.
I guess it comes to the point of, we seem to be doing things pretty well right now. Why? It's kind of like changing an operating system because it's time to change it, not because it's getting any better. Change for change's sake is change to improve is one thing. Change for change's sake is another. I don't know.
Like moving from Windows 7 to Windows 10, there was
which
no
I hope
point.
to do one day.
Yeah, there was no point. Don't bother, frankly. Anyway,
I'm going to have to in January.
No.
But can I just point out that Armando, God bless him, is in the chat room at 5 in the morning, his time.
Ugh. Silly boy.
Silly boy. So, Micah, remember you were saying earlier that how you would love to travel in the residence with Etihad in that suite and have your own personal lounge and dining area and all the rest of it. So, I was trying to find flights from the US to bring you back here to PTUK Studios, but couldn't find them, unfortunately. But I managed to find you a flight to go from here in the UK to Abu Dhabi in the residence, return. How much do you reckon, Micah, from the UK to Abu Dhabi?
Oh, that's got to be...
in the residence?
That's got to be 25,000 quid at the very, very least.
Actually... It's a bargain price here.
Right.
Must be an off-peak ticket, this, I think. But in the residence, so this is 13 grand.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there's still an eye-watering number of money.
That's not bad.
It's the price of a decent car.
13,000. Well, it's £12,916 will get you a return flight from London to Heathrow to Abu Dhabi, and that's
and how much for my carry-on?
Well, funnily enough, you get allowance with that price.
Oh, that's a shock. Yeah,
yeah. You're allowed to take a mobile phone with you. That's about it.
Yeah.
No, I think that's not too bad, Matt. I think we should ask Nev if he
No,
wants
that's
to.
actually very good because I if I recall correctly, last I checked, just a real first-class ticket on BA from Boston to London was in the neighborhood of 10. So
Neil Lamorne's got a fantastic point in the chat room here, in the fact that nobody needs data on Captain Al's output.
Oh dear.
I think that's marvellous. Yeah.
Oh.
just like more information than anybody needs in their life.
yeah, Captain Al has a certain air about him.
He does. He does. Very true. So that is where we bring the commercial news stories to a close this week. But coming up next, we've got Alfie, who's joined us here in the studio.
I don't know why he doesn't normally come in here. I don't know quite what's going on here.
No. He was frustrated. He could hear the enjoyment.
Hello, Alfie. Oh, what a good boy.
Yes, I know, darling. Yes, I know. Sorry. Anyway, slight interlude. Carry on, Carlos.
Carrying swiftly moving on. So coming up next, we have got our next instalment from the Biggin Hill Festival of Flight, and in this week's interview, we'll see Matt having a chat with Nick from Airability. And just to give you the heads up, these guys, like I said before at the beginning of the show, these guys give the chance to less able people to have the ability to learn to fly and to fly aircraft, and they also have their own aerobatic team as well, who put on a display at Biggin Hill. And we're going to hand you over to Matt right now.
So I'm here with Nick. This is the Airability British Flying Charity. So tell us a little bit about yourselves.
Myself, I'm a retired commercial pilot, and at the end of my flying career I renewed my instructor's rating and came along to Airability and began instructing there on a volunteer basis.
So I've been reading some of the literature here this morning. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. Tell us a little bit about what Airability does.
Airability itself, it's a flying charity, so we'll take any kind of disability and we'll get that person into an airplane, give them a flying experience, and it might be just a one-off trip. It might well be going for a license. I mean, we put through probably at least, I'd say, 5 PPLs a year.
Oh wow! So it's more than just like a getting them in the air type thing. There's an end goal to it if that's what they want.
There can be, yes, whatever people want to make of it. And of course, a lot of our clients are military people that have been injured and lost limbs and that sort of thing. We've got 5 aircraft altogether, 4 of whom have been adapted with hand controls so that wheelchair users are able to fly them and even get licenses.
Oh, wow.
By just flying with hands.
Okay, so I mean, obviously that's obviously an expensive thing to do to have the adapt. So what sort of planes have you got? What is the fleet?
Yes, we have 3 Piper Warriors, all of which are adapted. We've got a 2-seat aircraft, a Tecnam aeroplane, Italian built, and that's actually the first aircraft ever that's been factory built for disabled people with hand controls built into the airplane.
Wow.
And then we've got a 6-seat airplane which isn't adapted, but we use that for giving experienced flights and for touring. I mean, we do a lot of touring with our disabled pilots all around Europe and that sort of thing. And the Cherokee 6 is really handy for, piling in wheelchairs and hoisting equipment that we need to take with us.
So you're here with another company that are helping you with this stand, you were saying?
Yes, we're also with, alongside, we're sharing the stand with the Bardas Bus Company. And their main claim to fame for this year, of course, is that they are the first disabled display team that has ever been in the UK. So all of the pilots in the Bardas Bus Company display team are disabled pilots.
Wow. So your background, obviously you're a keen aviator. I mean,
Sure.
What sort of led you to this point here? So you're saying you're a private pilot?
I started a private pilot. I used to work for British Airways for many years, but I've spent most of my flying career flying business jets. So VIPs, pop stars and film stars, that sort of thing. And coming to the end of that, it was actually one of the cabin crew that I used to fly with was working already with Airability on a volunteer basis. And she said to me, just pop in and say hello. Come in and have a cup of tea.
That's how all these things start.
That was 6 years ago, and I'm still here. So and loving it.
Well, I say you're clearly loving it. I mean, you can see through the enthusiasm and everything. It just
the idea. I mean, a lot of people, even able-bodied people, many people think I couldn't possibly fly an airplane, but take somebody who's disabled, and that's multiplied.
Yeah, more. You can't help but feel more challenged by that.
Absolutely. But my experience as an instructor, when I get somebody who's severely disabled, get them airborne, then say, right, you have control, and they are actually flying the airplane. Wow. That sense of joy that they get from that, I get to, experience that time and time again.
I bet. Well, I mean, it sounds like a very rewarding programme. But so tell us a little bit about how people get in touch if they want to get involved and how they could perhaps donate.
Yeah, sure. We're based at Blackbush Airport, and we're very, very welcome and opening. Anybody that's driving by is welcome to come in and have a cup of tea. But we've got a website.
Yeah, although be careful with that, because otherwise you could be there for 6 years if that's right.
Yeah, but that's all right. But that's everybody, even the cleaning lady that cleans the office in the evening. She said, "I'd leave this place till last." She said, "It's the happiest place that I work at." Yeah. So it's that sort of atmosphere we have. We get quite a lot of big sponsorship from from Boeing, from the National Air Traffic Service. British Airways even.
Oh, brilliant.
So, we get sponsorship from a wide range. And we've got buckets here, so people that come by at the show today, they're very welcome to buy our merchandise and donate.
Fantastic. So there's a website, I assume?
There is a website, airability.com. Just have a look at it. It's got the telephone contacts there. And the main message is, it doesn't matter how severe is the disability, we can accommodate it.
You can get you in the air somehow.
Yeah. The only time I've ever had to turn somebody away where there were possibly unpredictable behavioural problems, but I've had 3 blind three students totally blind to come along for an aviation experience. Wow. So there is no limit.
It really is open to all.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for your time, Nick. It sounds like a fascinating project, and we all wish you the best of luck with it.
Thanks very much. Right, my pleasure.
And I must say, their display that they did later on in that afternoon was just mind-numbingly incredible, given the achievements.
I just think we all kind of have the whole flying and aviation thing. We all kind of take it for granted, really. The ability to go and jump into a Cessna or jump into now and just go pot around and fly around and stuff like that. But there are people who do, who haven't got quite the ability to just jump into an aircraft and do that. And these guys are giving anyone a chance to go and have a fly in it or fly in an aircraft. And as Matt said, they had a great display. And it's just a fantastic group of people, really, to give these people a chance to fly.
Lovely. As you say, it's like people, military people with military background. Obviously, they've developed some amazing skills. It's nice to be able to give them the opportunity to sort of, to get their hands, if you like, on adapted aircraft so they can carry on with their passion. It's brilliant. I love it.
Love it. Yeah.
Love it.
So, coming up next, then, we've got some military news. Obviously, Armando's not here, but we're keeping up appearances, as we say here in the UK,
Indeed.
with some military news. So, if everyone's ready...
Your main man's up for it.
Okay, let's go.
Good, excellent. There we are. I did it. We'll fix that in post, right?
I know.
Yeah.
So, Micah, if you want to take the first story on the Royal Air Force website.
Then it's got to be true. Leonardo to support RAF with future counter-drone technology program. The ministry is the 11th of September. Good day for counter-drone, counter-terrorists. The Ministry of Defense has selected Leonardo to support a multi-million-pound research and development program to better understand counter-drone technology. Building on previous R&D undertaken with the company in this area, Leonardo will support the RAF to explore technical mitigations to the current threats posed by hostile drones through the evaluation of mature and evolving sensor and effector technology. Starting in early 2020 and supporting 20 jobs across the company, the primary integration work will be mainly undertaken by Leonardo at its Basildon. Is that correct? Did I pronounce that correctly?
Basildon's good, yes. We like that, yes.
Basildon, Essex, and Southampton sites, with real-time testing undertaken at several mod locations within the UK. The 3-year program is going to examine and inform how the RAF can detect, track, identify, and defeat rogue drones. It will also support the RAF in responding to current and evolving threats and ensure it keeps pace with the technology over time. The primary aim of the R&D program will be to help understand and inform requirements of a potential future core RAF counter-drone capability. And I think that pretty much covers it.
Which we could do with in the UK here, because we had an incident, didn't we, this week, Matt, with people trying to fly drones again at Heathrow.
Did we?
Was it? Yeah.
I was going to ask about that. I heard they were able to defeat them.
Yes, yeah, we defeated them with counter-drone technology here in the UK.
I didn't know that.
In other words, you blocked the signals, so I couldn't fly them.
I like it.
But it's amazing, when you look at over the last few years how big the industry has got now with people buying UAVs and stuff to fly. You've got one, yeah.
I love mine.
And all the hype around it, and everyone's buying one, and everyone's got one, and we're all using them, blah blah blah. And now we're trying to design stuff to stop them.
Stop it. Yeah, but it's the same old story, isn't it? It's the minority spoiling it for the majority again, isn't it? Where people just
have you got one, Micah?
I was going to say, it's not just that, but this is the use of drones in terms of military use and being able to stop the military use of drones. There was just, if I recall correctly, I just heard on the news, I was kind of sound asleep, but Iran just destroyed a Saudi oil refinery using drones. Yeah. Just was from the past few hours. So this is the kind of thing that we would need to develop in order to protect ourselves from terrorist states.
Yeah, a small part of me feels a little bit uncomfortable about drones being used in warfare. I completely understand why, obviously, because the sheer fact of the matter is there's no personnel directly involved. Everybody involved is at sort of 300, 400, 500 miles away. But I don't know. I just It's also it's not going to take much to have missed something, if you like, and then suddenly something very precious to you has just been exploded. I don't know. I love drones, but and I love the idea of what they can do, but there's large elements of the technology that make me very nervous.
Well, but what's the difference between a drone coming down or dropping a bomb on you and from 30,000 feet that you haven't seen, and all of a sudden the bomb's there, or a manned bomber doing that? What's the difference in terms of you being on the ground and being destroyed?
Yeah, it's the same decision-making process, I suppose, involved in making that tactical decision to do that, I guess.
Yeah.
No, fair point.
So next story, Matt, on defencenews.com for you. And worrying if you're the owner of a KC-46.
Right, okay. I mean, good news there, I'm not.
Okay.
So I'm sure I'll soldier on. But, so it's Defence News is the website.
Soldier on, very good.
See what I did there. And the US Air Force restricts the KC-46 from carrying cargo and passengers. So in a move that could have major impacts on the already delayed tanker program, the US Air Force has indefinitely barred the KC-46 from carrying cargo and passengers, Defence News has learned. The decision was made after an incident occurred where the cargo locks the bottom of the floor of the aircraft, the locks on the bottom of the floor of the aircraft became unlocked during a recent flight, creating concerns that airmen could potentially be hurt or even killed by heavy equipment that suddenly bursts free from a flight. As a result of this discovery, the Air Force has submitted a Category 1 deficiency report and is working with Boeing to identify a solution. The Air Force Mobility Command spokesman Colonel Damien Pickard has said in a statement the service uses the term Category 1 to describe serious technical issues that could endanger the aircrew or aircraft or have other major effects. Until we find a viable solution with Boeing to remedy this problem, we can't jeopardise the safety of our aircrew and this aircraft, he said. The problem was discovered during a recent overseas operational test and evaluation flight where KC-46 aircrew noticed that numerous cargo restraint devices had come unlocked over the course of multiple leg of trips. Prior to departing for each of these missions, aircrew fully installed, locked and thoroughly inspected each restraint and performed routine inspections on the restraints in flight. Pickard said that despite these safety measures, the unlocking of cargo door restraints occurred during flight, although no cargo or equipment moved and there was no specific risk to aircraft or crew. A source with knowledge of the issue told Defence News that if all restraints on a particular pallet had become unlocked, it would be able to roll freely throughout the cabin. If all cargo became unlatched, it could pose a real safety risk to aircrew or even unbalance the aircraft, making the plane difficult, if not impossible, to control. While this problem has only been observed on one KC-46, the Air Force does not have enough information to rule it out on other aircraft having similar defects. The problem also poses a danger to the tanker's operational schedule. Pickard said the program said that to start initial operational test and evaluation this fall with pre-IOT and E activities already initiated. This is a multi-mission aircraft. It is for carrying cargo and passengers. It's for refueling and also for aeromedical evacuation missions. He said if you can't carry cargo pallets and patient litters, a significant amount of your core missions cannot be properly tested. In a statement, the KC-46 manufacturer Boeing acknowledged that it had been notified of the new issue. The company and the Air Force are cooperatively analysing the locks to determine a root cause. Sorry, the dog's being a complete nana. The safety of the KC-46 aircraft and crew is our top priority. Once a cause has been identified, the tanker team will implement any required actions as quickly as possible. But the problem could be bad news for Boeing's bottom line. The company is locked into a fixed price contract for where it is responsible for paying for any expenses beyond the initial $4.9 million award for development of the aircraft. So far, the company has paid more than $3.5 billion of its own money to fund corrections to ongoing technical issues.
Now, all I'm going to say on this, obviously the KC-46 is based on the 767, as most people know. All I'm going to say on this subject is that never had this problem with the L-1011s when the Royal Air Force were using them as tanker transports.
Dear.
Well, let's talk about this for a little bit because there's some information that people need to know. And Armando provided some because I had a couple of questions for him. I reported on this story on WBZ the other night. But first of all, a lot of people don't realize that tankers are not like tanker trucks, tanker lorries that are just, filled, the whole fuselage is filled up with gas. They are really transport aircraft that have the capability of refueling from their own fuel tanks, and they may have larger fuel tanks. But the inside of the tanker is primarily designed for cargo, and they carry cargo and people as much as they do refueling, and they're used for that quite a bit. KC-46 is a Boeing aircraft, and Boeing has some problems, and they decided to use electronic cargo locks. Now, we've had cargo locks working for years in aircraft. But these new electronic cargo locks, which they hold down pallets, the pallets could be the cargo or the pallets could be seats, are unlocking for some reason or other. And if the cargo were to unlock in flight, you guys remember the crash of the Boeing 747 in Afghanistan back in 2000?
Where the cargo shifted,
Right, the cargo shifted, the center of gravity shifted, you have no control. So now, as of right now, the KC-47, the KC-46 rather, cannot fuel the aircraft because they have problems with the boom, and it can't carry cargo, and it can't carry passengers. So as of right now, until this problem is corrected, it's totally useless. This is a major Boeing issue.
And I dare say they will be working very quickly to put it right, because it's not like they're having a bit of a tough time already or anything. It's not good, is it? Anyway, on to the last story.
Yeah, dside.com, this one. And a great picture here when Matt puts it up on the screen.
Was that as subtle as a sledgehammer
aircraft,
hit, was it?
aircraft we all love. This one, the headline, rare sight in Flintshire as 2 US military Osprey aircraft pay a flying visit. So local aviation fans had a rare treat this week when 2 United States Air Force Osprey V-22 aircraft flew into Flintshire airspace. Flying in close formation, the 2 tilt-rotor military helicopters, call signs Knife 71 and Knife 72, arrived overhead at 4 p.m. in the afternoon. They were spotted flying low over Pennyford, Halkin, Flint and Barilt before looping over the Dee estuary and back over Iwalo and Buckley. Carolyn, one of the people who saw these, said that she spotted the pair over the mountains and running in line with the A55 road, then turned and headed back towards Hawarden. Another viewer, I should say, of the aircraft, David, told the paper that they flew right over Northop Hall, a great view from his orchard, he said. Another person who saw these, Anwin, said that the noise he thought was a tractor and trailer.
Right.
I will say,
wow.
I've never associated the noise of a V-22 Osprey with the sound of a tractor and trailer. But then they flew over Flintshire over towards Wrexham before heading south. The V-22 Osprey is a multi-mission tilt-rotor military aircraft with both vertical and takeoff, landing and short takeoff and landing capabilities. It's designed to combine the functionality of a conventional helicopter with the long-range, high-speed cruise performance of a turboprop aircraft. The US Air Force UK Osprey unit is based at RAF Mildenhall in Suffolk. Despite its status as a Royal Air Force station, it primarily supports the US Air Force's operations. The Osprey may be a rare sight in Flintshire, however they do fly up to RAF Valley in Anglesey fairly regularly and spotted along the Mac Loop, the set of valleys situated between Dongalau and Machlineth. Say that after a few scotches. So the area is regularly used for low-level flight training, with flying as low as 250 metres, or 250 feet, I should say, from the nearest terrain. And Matt was playing the video there of the Osprey, which honestly, these I was lucky enough to obviously get a tour of one of these at the base, and such an amazing aircraft to see up close and sit on the flight deck of.
I bet.
And can I just tell you how jealous I am of Armando for so many different reasons, but definitely because he has flown in this aircraft regularly, and that's an airplane I would really like to fly in.
Yeah,
I enjoy helicopter flying, but an aircraft flying, and this is both. I would love to fly in a V-22.
It's an amazing bit of kit. I mean, many things give me a headache about it. I'm not going to lie. I mean, it's just the sheer science, and it's just, again, it's a bit like I quite often say about helicopters, isn't it? Where they weren't built and engineered. They were, they appeared from Hogwarts, because it's just like literally they don't make sense. And this definitely doesn't. I mean, it's just an amazing bit of kit.
So that's the last military news story this week. But we've got a special little kind of montage that has been sent in to us from our guest host this week,
yes.
Micah. So, Micah, you've sent us in some pictures and video of. What was going on here? You've had a flight in a Cessna 182 RG, I think.
Yes, I did. I don't get to fly very often, unfortunately, and certainly not as often as I would like, and I love to fly. Well, my cousin in Florida, he came up this week to visit me, and he happens to be a private pilot, and he said, let's go flying. And he's not checked out anywhere. So I got in touch with Southern Maine Aviation. That's if you're looking at the screen, that's my cousin Mitchell on the right, and that's my Aunt Jerry. He brought her up to surprise me. Hadn't seen her in 6 years. Aunt Jerry is 82 years old, and
Wow.
she flew GA once before. We went down to Southern Maine Aviation in Sanford, Maine. I talked to a CFI, and we arranged to have the CFI fly with us so my cousin could actually fly with the CFI, although in the right seat was actually the PIC. We put me and my Aunt Jerry in a back seat. We're in our Dave Clark headsets and went for a flight up the coast. We headed out from Sanford and flew to the coastline, flew just to the west of Walker's Point in Kennebunkport. That's where the Bush's home is. There's a TFO after that, but we did that, and then flew into the Portland Harbor Visual, which you're seeing now. And that harbor visual approach is just a gorgeous approach. Flew right over Portland Harbor. Flew up that's Walker's Point there, I believe. Flew up the harbor over the islands into the Portland Harbor, and did a quick touch and go at the Portland Airport. Then continued on, headed up north over Freeport. Flew over a friend's house that happens to be right down there on the right, and turned around and came back. That's Fort Gorgas over in Portland, built for the Civil War. You don't often get that view of it, and it's going to be redeveloped at some point soon. And it was just a beautiful flight, and you can just see how beautiful Portland and the coastline of Maine is. We were in there for about an hour and a half. It was my first time in an RG, flown in a 172 before. That's two lighthouses. You can just make out the two lighthouses. That was painted with a very famous Edward Hopper painting, but just so scenic and so gorgeous. And we're at about 1,500 feet the whole time, and you can see that rocky coast of Maine. It's a picture of Dana and I from down there, close up. I took him down there when he was visiting up here, and walked along those rocks for a little bit. Just a beautiful area. And that's what I got to do on Wednesday, and fly with my aunt, her second time ever in a GA aircraft, and her second time in Maine. She was here in Maine once before in 1959. That's our route.
Wow. Love it. It sounds like a lot of fun. As I say, it's the weather looks amazing as well.
Honestly, the view, the scenery is just amazing, Micah.
If you leave that slide up right now, you can see that we took off from Sanford. The yellow is us going up. We had to circle around as we had a couple of RJs come into Portland ahead of us, and which was nice, flying parallel with those RJs. Did the touch and go in Portland, back up to Freeport, circled around my friend's house a couple of times, and came on back down. Just a gorgeous flight.
Does sound like a lot of fun. As I say, it's so nice to do it with people that that don't get to do a lot of flying as well, like yourself, and you say, and your aunt and things. It's any excuse for a bit of a get together. That's what we like, isn't it?
It was just so nice. I haven't actually been in the air. This summer I was in the air twice. I think I told you I got the chance to fly in that Stearman up in Rockland. And Max did too, which was wonderful, open cockpit. And then this was the second time, and I just don't get in the air often enough. It's the first time I flew since I visited with you guys in Farnborough.
My goodness me. Now, people will have not been able to escape the fact that Carlos has been doing a little bit of flying as well this last week. Now, anybody who's been stuck under a stone, where have you been?
Well, I thought I'd travel back to the home, where I call home, the lovely island of Malta. And on my usual Mecca return journey back there every year. And this year we chose to fly again with the wonderful Ryanair. Not on one of these, though. This is a Max.
Yeah.
But we had obviously the joy of flying with Ryanair from London Luton. And I have to say that on this occasion we probably won't be doing this again from Luton, because Luton is probably the most hideous airport to fly from. So Matt's put a little montage together of...
there we go. So it's Gemma and Mum, isn't it, next to you? Absolutely.
What you can't see there is me shivering in the freezing cold last week when we boarded the aircraft.
Warm, was it?
It was not.
No, okay.
No.
So this is security, did you
No,
say?
the check-in queue at Luton, where they had one desk open for the whole flight.
Oh, good. Always nice.
Lovely view of a Wizz Air there.
Yeah. So this is boarding. I
Boarding,
presume.
yes, boarding at Luton. The queue for the aircraft there.
Yeah, see, I didn't realise the stairs came out of the side of the aircraft. I
Yes,
didn't
yeah,
know that.
built-in air
I
stairs.
made it look like a right muppet.
Look, sunrise over London Luton. So I made it on board the aircraft, and after a lengthy walk through Luton security area, we're finally on board, and looking forward to a nice 3-hour flight to Malta.
Actually, I didn't realise, because like Luton is actually once you've sort of left the terminal behind you and get in the air, the area around Luton is
nice.
beautiful.
Yeah. Here we go, taking off here now.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, quite quiet, you know.
What, a Boeing 737?
Matt's filtered out the aircraft noise.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I'll tell you what, I had to fiddle it a bit. There's a really weird buzz, isn't there, when it sort of first gets off the...
Oh,
you've got
the noise from the engines.
Yeah, is that the engines?
CFM
okay.
engines, yeah.
Yeah, a bit of a buzz. It's the speed. Every time I watch these videos of stuff taking off, the speed as you're charging down that runway is something that always melts my mind.
We had about 3/4 full flight on the way over. It wasn't full. I managed to. I was in row 2 on the way there, and I had a seat to myself in the middle, which was nice.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Which was quite nice.
Lovely. And where were
they were in the back.
They were in the back
near the
right.
APU. Yeah.
Okay, right. Because he's lovely like that. Yes. Have you told her that you bought yourself special tickets and it wasn't actually automatically assigned? Right.
Oh dear.
Yeah. As I say, it's you sort of forget, considering where Luton is. It's actually very, very sort of wooded.
You know what? You can't make it there. The river that was just on there had a fog over, which was quite nice. And views when we got up to cruise altitude, and this
is coming into Malta.
The approach into Lucca Airport in Malta, and this is a site that I never get tired of every year of going back because it's fantastic. And actually, Malta, the airport itself, is making some more improvements. Even though they've spent millions over the last few years improving the airport, they're now going to put some more improvements to the terminal building over the next few years.
I mean, Luton have spent a lot of money on theirs. I mean, where do you think they spent their millions on the security and things? Okay, deathly silence. That's
on the car park?
On the car park, right, okay. Perhaps they got a new tea hut out back. Perhaps that's what it is.
Here we go.
But, it's,
and also, Lucca Airport as well, don't forget, has got quite a large technical base where aircraft go for maintenance. Lufthansa Technik have got a big hangar here.
Oh, okay.
On the site as well. Here we go. Bit of a bumpy landing there.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, a bit bumpy.
There you go. And there we are. That's his little visit to Malta. Did you enjoy it? Do you have a nice holiday? Because you did something you don't normally do, didn't you? In the fact that you were actually in a hotel.
We're in a hotel,
You normally do an apartment, don't you?
We do.
How was the food?
Food was amazing. Hotel was brilliant. The staff looked after us, gave us a nice big room.
Oh, very good.
And but moving on to the coming home yesterday into London Luton.
I hope everyone's comfortable.
So for those of you who may be unfortunate enough to have travelled back into the UK through London Luton, will probably notice, for one, the lengthy walk from the Ryanair gates to passport control, and then the massive, I can only say huge queue to go through the E-gates at Luton. And they've got the old school gates. They've got about 10 of the old school gates that are manned by the border patrol. And then they've got the E-gates, most of which people still cannot operate for the life of them. Lots of people stand there and sort of hammering the passports down on the readers.
Not reading the instructions.
Not reading the instructions. But we got through there. I got through okay, but probably the first year my passports actually worked properly to get back into the UK. But we had nearly an hour wait for our suitcases after we'd landed.
Right. I mean, was it a very busy time? So were there lots of flights coming in?
There was 3 flights that came in the same time or 2 more flights that came in the same time as us into Luton. There was a Wizz Air flight and an EasyJet flight that were with us, and they put all 3 flights on one carousel, which made things slightly awkward.
Challenging, yeah.
And I think they must have put our cases on last because they came through, like I said, nearly an hour after we landed.
I mean, presumably this isn't Ryanair's fault particularly.
No, this will be the ground handlers at Luton.
Right. Okay.
And one of the things that did impress me very much last night was how various cases came through in pieces.
Oh, really?
Yes, there was.
Oh no.
There was one suitcase that came through on the carousel, and most of the contents were on the carousel.
Lovely, right? That's a warm welcome, isn't it?
Yeah. So so whoever had that unfortunate thing was probably not going to be very happy.
No, indeed. But other than that, you had a lovely holiday.
Other than that, a great holiday, fantastic. And I will say that the crew on the way out and on the way back, especially, were really, really good. Really nice crew. Mainly because the crew on the way home are Maltese. But but also I will say that the flight deck crew on the way home yesterday were very young.
Were they?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, they were quite a young captain and FO on the flight. So, no, it was good. Really good serve. I will say, Ryanair did, and we landed on time.
Wow.
And they still do the fanfare.
Oh,
thing.
they do. Yeah. It's a different fanfare now.
Oh, it's a different fanfare. Oh god.
Absolutely. So obviously that's your holiday. As we start to wrap up, then what else have you? What's on the itinerary for next week? I don't suppose you know yet because you haven't been to work.
No, I've no idea what I've got next week. I've probably got a warehouse full of things that need
tidying up.
Yes. But no. Micah, how are your plans for next week? Are you going flying anywhere exciting?
Well, actually, if things work out as planned, our good friend Captain Jeff should have a layover up here in Portland this week.
Nice.
I'll get to visit with him. Haven't seen him in person in a couple of years. And then the following week, the Collings Foundation is going to be in Lewiston, Maine. And they are bringing, if nothing goes tech, there'll be their B-17, their B-24, their B-25, their P-51 Mustang, and brand new this year, their P-40 Warhawk Flying Tiger.
Wow.
And I'm trying to get in touch with them. They told me to contact them for better tours and possible flights before they get here. And I'm hoping to go visit them. I guess it'll be a week from Thursday.
Wow. That sounds good.
So, very exciting.
I bet, yeah. Sounds like a very full week ahead for you then.
Are you oh, Matt, you forgot to mention your...
my gifts.
Your gifts.
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
I brought Matt gifts home because that's how nice
Yeah, I mean, some of them I've already eaten, I should just stress. That's all right, I pressed the wrong button and made the things go.
What's that one, Matt?
I don't know, can't read it. What was it?
Prickly pear
jam. Yum.
Lovely. I'm rather partial to some jams, it has to be said.
And it's one of my favourite ones.
Is this? Oh, it's a fig jam, look. There we are.
Ooh.
Oh, I like the look of that.
Fig jam.
I should be having that for my lunch in a moment.
Oh.
Yeah, I think that'll be a nice compliment to lunch. I don't know what I'm doing this week much really. I've got a trip to Yarmouth Races. That'll be quite good fun. What? I like Yarmouth Races. It's a good race course.
Yeah.
No, it is. It really is. Anyway, so I've got lots of driving and stuff. I just wanted to briefly mention actually what I got up to yesterday. So yesterday I was running a few errands for a friend of mine. But while I was down that way, I may have jumped in my car and gone sort of down south, which was nice. And I had the great pleasure of having dinner with this little rabble yesterday, which was a real delight. So if you're listening to the audio version of this show, from left to right on the picture, you have
trouble. That's trouble.
Matt, I will just say, Matt has put 3 or 4 different filters on the picture just to obviously tone down
Captain Nick's
shirt.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So left to right was Captain Nick. Next to that was the lovely Justice. Sat next to him, obviously, is the beautiful Dr. Steph, the legend that is Sir Neville of Bounds, the irrepressible and long-suffering Auntie Sue next to Nev, and then of course the lovely Jilly, and as I say, Nick's wife. And it was a real pleasure to go and just sort of spend just a few hours down there. I had to drive back last night, unfortunately. Otherwise, I dread to think what state any of them were all in the morning, because they were having a lovely time, shall we say, when I left just after 9. It was all getting a bit, but what a lovely evening it was. So really, very, very honoured to have been able to go down and see. You couldn't join us, unfortunately, because obviously you were still on holiday.
I was still flying home.
You were flying home at the time, but yes, but yeah, that's it. So
don't forget social media links. Join the show. Join us on the show. Join us each week on the show. You can follow us via our website, www.planetalkinguk.com. And also you can go on our website and find links to purchase T-shirts, which we have as well, which you can buy and spoil yourself with. And Instagram, Twitter, all the social media.
Search for Plane Talking UK, all as one word. And the email address for the show is podcast@planetalkinguk.com. That's podcast@planetalkinguk.com.
Micah, where can the listeners, if they
somehow don't know already, where can the listeners find more about yourself, sir?
Well, you can find me on Twitter, and that's Mainfly, Maine like the state, M-A-I-N-E Fly, F-L-Y. I'm at Mainfly. And if you want to reach me through the Airplane Geeks, I am Micah, M-I-C-A-H, at airplanegeeks.com. And of course, I'm in the Airplane Geeks and Airline Pilot Guy Slack team, which is always a good place to go to find out more about those two wonderful podcasts, our brother or sister podcasts from PTUK, because we're all just one big family.
One big happy family indeed.
So that is where we're going to bring episode number 286 of the show to a close. Fingers crossed we'll all be back next Friday for the show. Hopefully Armando will be back, and also Nev will be back as well, and the family will be back together again.
That's true. So have a lovely week, everybody. We'll see you all next week. Take care, everybody.
Enjoy your Sunday roast.
Bye-bye.
Bye.